We're all obsessed with trying to master artificial intelligence, AI, but actually the one that we need to master is the other AI, authentic intelligence. Our greatest single advantage in succeeding and cutting through is being more human. Bizarrely, it sounds weird that we've got to learn to be more human, but we've got to learn to communicate in a way that's more human and not fake. So I want to show you through 3 really simple tests how you can make sure that your personal brand is not fake and that you are being truly, authentically yourself. So check number 1 is something I like to call the pub test. Basically, this is the one that says when you go back and look at your content, read it aloud, or watch a video, does it sound like you? Does it sound like the conversation you might have with somebody sat next to them in the pub or at dinner? Because if it doesn't, it means you are parading as something else. The most important thing to do is to communicate as you do. Don't feel like it needs to go through a filter, that it means to make you sound like someone else. People connect with you, not some fake made-up version. I can't tell you how many times that I've been in a situation where I've met somebody online, I've consumed their content, I've got to know them through the stories they tell, and I really feel like I have a sense of who they are. And then I meet them in person, and they're nothing like the persona they created online. Now, not only is that a bit of a shock and surprise, it left me with a feeling of I wasn't sure I knew them. It meant it impacted my trust, and I think it really impacted their credibility. So one of the things I do is when I write content, actually read it out aloud. I read it back to myself. Does it sound like something I would say to someone else, or does it sound like some kind of made up corporate version? When I'm creating content, I like to use AI to really help keep my voice, the way I express things, the passion, the energy, the words, the simplicity. So I use something called Whisper, or there are many other tools like this that allows me effectively to dictate my stories. I can talk to the screen as if I was talking to someone else, and that helps keep my true voice. So check number 1, go back through your content, reread it, read it aloud. Does it sound like you? What would you need to do to make it sound more like you? Now, if you're brave enough, get one of your friends, get somebody who knows you really well to read your content and ask them, does it sound like you? If you want to go really crazy, do the Pepsi test. Mask it as your content and maybe take something else and see if someone can spot which one is yours. I knew I'd got to the point of really writing authentically like myself when people would say to me, I don't even necessarily need to know it's your name at the top of it. As I read, it sounds like Nishma in my ear. So, how do you get that close to it? Keep practicing. Use AI tools that help capture your voice. Don't let the AI tools sanitize and completely wipe out your character. Use it as a companion. Okay, check number 2. This is what I call the story test. Now, it takes time to get this one right, if I'm honest, because it requires you to be not just vulnerable, but really honest with yourself. I've often said building a personal brand is as much about getting to know yourself as it is about how you communicate who you are to the rest of the world. It's actually probably one of the best journeys of self-discovery and connection that you can do. So what I mean by the story test is, are you only sharing the edited highlight reel of your life? So you're only going so far in what you tell in your story. You don't really want to share all the things you got wrong. You don't really want to tell everyone that it might have taken you 5 attempts to create something. You don't want to tell anyone that the thing that you're teaching them has come as a result of the challenges that you went through. One of the things that's really popular when people think about their story is something that's people refer to as building in public. Now, what this actually means is the content you create or the stories you tell don't always have to be an after effect. It's not a case of, well, I will tell you a story by looking backwards at all the things I've done and aggregate those findings for you. That's definitely one of the approaches. The others is to be really open and say, actually, I'm going to take you on this journey with me. I'm going to take you step by step with the things I learn, I experiment with, that I might fail at, and I might succeed with. And each step of that journey, I'm going to take you with me. Now, that can be pretty vulnerable. You're learning in public. There's definitely going to be stuff that doesn't quite work out. And you may even need to kind of reframe what the wins are. But I really love some of the people who do this. Their content is not just engaging and interesting, but you learn so much. There's a huge amount of relatability to say, oh yeah, I'm experiencing that, or that's happened to me. Or sometimes actually having the foresight to reckon and understand that this might come. This might be something that could be ahead of me. So it doesn't always have to be a reflection of what's happened, but it can be as you build along. Just the most important thing is just be you. I know it sounds so obvious, but I can't tell you how many senior executives and founders I've worked with who are so closed and do not want to share even an ounce of their personality, which is such a shame because they have so many great stories and a great personality behind them. So finding a way to be confident and to figure out where and what you want to connect with is a really critical skill. Doesn't matter what area of your work or business you're in. So if you're not thinking about building a personal brand with trust that has a significant element of authenticity and the truth of your story, not just the highlight reel, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to not just connect with your people and your customers, but you're missing out on an opportunity of growth. The third check is something called the mirror test. So this is about looking at yourself, literally, or looking at your personal brand and saying, does it reflect who I am now? Or does it reflect a version of me from several years ago? Or does it actually reflect some version of that I'm hoping I'm going to be? Because the reality is all of those are incorrect. You want it to be a reflection of who you are. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't shift and evolve. It's about recognizing that a personal brand has to evolve with you. I'll give you an example. So I know that the personal brand that I had created previously in my corporate life wouldn't necessarily fit me as I am today. In that way, it would feel fake. It wouldn't feel as comfortable. And there's a number of reasons why. The things I wanted to talk about, the reason why I wanted to do it, even the way I communicated. There's, without a doubt, if you work in a corporate environment, there's a degree of censorship and control. Whereas now I can wear fuck it necklaces, a lot of sequins, and say what I want to say. But there's also, I have to be careful of a watch out that I'm not creating content as Nishma as I'd like her to be. Yes, there's an aspirational view and belief that I'm there, but I'm not there yet. I'm still discovering aspects of myself, what connects, what's useful, what's valuable, and that's likely to change. I know that even in the last few years, I have had times when I've stopped and looked at my content and gone, I don't like it. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like me. Felt like I was writing either as someone else or for someone else. It's a really common mistake when people fall into the trap of writing for an algorithm. And so I think it's really important to quite regularly cross-check and go, does this feel like me? Does this represent who I really am? I know for me, the test has always been, will I share it? If I'm not willing to share what I create with the people that know me best, it's because I know that there's a misalignment. Now, we all know we're not the same person we were 20 years ago, and I'm pretty sure I won't be the same person in 20 years' time that I am today. And that's the beauty of a personal brand, is it can evolve with you in every respect. So how do we fix this? Well, I think there's a few simple steps that you can go to. Number one, read out your content. Reread it. Maybe it's a speech, maybe it's a written piece on LinkedIn, maybe it's a video. Go back to it and read it out aloud. Does it sound like you? Does it sound like something you would say to your friend? But actually go back and audit your work. And actually, I think that's something you should do quite regularly to see if you are not just keeping on track with what you hope to be, but actually how you're evolving as well. It's a really great data point. The next thing is get comfortable with sharing some of those misses, not just the wins. We're really good at sharing wins. For years, the idea of being able to tell the story of all the great things that have happened and been achieved, easy. Much harder to start telling the things that didn't quite go well. Just the other day, I was asked about what my biggest mishap in my corporate life had been. And I told a story that still makes me shiver when I tell it. It was when I was in my earlier part of my career as sales director at Teletext. I accidentally emailed the entire list of the salaries of the sales team to the business. Yeah. So it makes me feel a little bit sick now. I remember running around to the tech department asking to unplug the servers, which would have taken down the national service of Teletext, but at that time it felt like a valid reason to turn it off. Of course they didn't. And as much as I wanted to crumple to the floor, the best bit of advice I had at the time was from a boss who said to me, no, you get yourself up, you go out and face everyone, and you defend not just the salaries you set, but you accept that you made a mistake, say sorry, and intentionally move on. I think what that taught me at that time, and since then, and being able to retell that story, is we will all make mistakes. The story is not in the mistake. The interesting story was in the recovery. The interesting story that made that useful to anybody else, or even as a useful reflection to me, was what I learned about what happens after the mistake. How did I pick myself up? How did I recover? How did I have, thankfully, such a brilliant boss and supporter to help me get through that difficult time? Great sign of brilliant leadership. That's the story. And so, yeah, there's a degree of vulnerability to share something that you messed up on, but the lesson in what you gained from that, way more valuable. So start immediately, go away, maybe even write a list of 5 things that haven't gone perfectly and write one of them up as a story. Just try it out. See what response you get, see how it feels, see how much detail you want to get into. Now, the other thing is we all suffer from comparisonitis. So what's one thing you could do is stop comparing what really is your behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. Let's remember, you don't see all the stuff that happens to get somebody to the bit that you finally see. So we have to stop comparing where we are with what others do. In actual fact, you are where you need to be, stay focused on what you're doing and take inspiration from others. But look, there's a reality. I love the fact when people sometimes show some of those behind the scenes pieces. So you get a bit more of a sense of the reality of what goes into creating a success or a personal brand, or why they connect, what they care about. And I think finally, which is connected to that, is you've got to get comfortable with good enough. Daniel Priestley gives a really good example of this, about the idea of getting things out there, moving things forward. And he talks about it as bridges. So you can do the most amazing piece of work in building buildings and constructing this bridge, but it's missing one part. So it doesn't matter how fantastic the design was. It doesn't matter how great you had started the construction. If you don't complete the bridge, that's still an incomplete bridge. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to sit there. And so sometimes it's about saying, actually, you need to get things out there. Maybe it's not perfect, but it is complete, at least to a degree, and then start to improve it, then start to perfect it. Because otherwise you're going to end up with a very, very large pile of incomplete bridges. 4 final tips to making sure that you stop creating a fake personal brand. Stop copying others. Just be uniquely you. You don't need to be a B-Tech version of someone else or a poorer substitute to somebody else's personal brand. Just be your personal brand. Think about what makes you uniquely you, your voice, your content, etc. Stop pretending to be an expert. If the thing you're talking about or you're developing your personal brand is not something you've got years of experience in or the credibility, that's okay if you're choosing to build in public. But be the student. Don't try and pretend to be an expert. Show people that you are the student and take them along on that journey. Stop seeking perfection. You've got to get comfortable with things not being quite perfect, but also figure out the mix that you want to have in there. You know, how much of the real you do you want to keep bringing in to your stories? I think that also talks to this idea of perfectionism. Actually, just be realistic who you are, the things you love doing, what makes you interesting. And start sharing some of those struggles, some of the wins, some of the challenges, some of the most importantly, the learnings. When you start doing that, you'll connect with other people and you'll build trust and you'll stop feeling like you've got a fake personal brand, because nobody wants to feel like they're fake. In a world of artificial intelligence, when it's becoming ever harder to spot fake from reality. Our greatest advantage is our humanity. Our greatest advantage is being us, our imperfect human selves. So we need to get better at storytelling and communicating and showing our imperfect human selves. I think it's your greatest advantage in what may come next. Okay, so you've now got a personal brand that doesn't feel fake because you've just done those 3 tests. But if you want to take it to the next level, I want you to go and check out one of my other videos, the one that shows you how to make sure that you don't get stuck in building your personal brand and that you can actually go from building something that not only you love, but is truly powerful in bringing you the opportunities and growth you deserve.